Welcome to the latest episode of Don't Work with Tossers, the podcast that will help you rid tossers from your life through business tips and life lessons. Today's guest is Clare Clifford, owner of Sunshine Digital, and thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Our episode title today is Life is Too Short to Work with Tossers, and Clare's story will help you to understand just a little bit why she believes this. She isn't wearing her necklace today that says "Don't be a dick" on it, which is actually her mantra, but she does have some very interesting earrings. So to save me having to have this bleeped out, I'm not going to tell you exactly what they say, but it says F no on the other one. Thanks for coming, Clare. So tell us, how long have you run Sunshine Digital, and what did you do before that?
So I've run Sunshine Digital we're coming up to the 6th birthday, but I worked freelance. I've worked freelance now for about 9-10 years.
Okay.
Before that, I spent about a decade working in various forms of business development, marketing, networking. I worked for a social housing consultancy. Loved it, travelled all over the country, and then I had my daughter. And being all over the country every week didn't lend itself very well to going back to work with a 9-month-old baby. So I got offered voluntary redundancy. I knew I didn't want to be there forever, and I just thought I'm never going to get offered this amount of money to leave a job that I don't really like. So I left and never looked back, really.
It seems quite a common pattern for women that have been in the corporate world or had a rather large employer, that once they've had their children, they don't want to necessarily go back and work in the same way that they did previously. And it's interesting that a number of guests have sort of said the same thing. And a lot of people that I work with, that's been their pivot point of when they've made that decision. But knowing what I know about you, you've had some real life hurdles to face. And I understand that you honestly do believe that life is too short to work with tossers. I believe through the work that I do and have done with as trustee of some of the charities, that it's definitely too short. And but you've had some real lived experiences that a lot of people would have given up, I think, or just said, no, I can't carry on. But I've come to understand the short time that I have known you that you don't give up. You're not a giver-upper. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your story?
So, my daughter Layla was 9 months old when she was nearly 2 actually when I eventually took voluntary redundancy. And I kind of freelanced, took on contracts, worked in the background, doing marketing for various companies. I never really had the balls to set up my own business. I was more than happy just to work my contacts and work quietly in the background and not be the face of my business. I always knew the plan was to have another child as well, so I kind of just chugged along for a couple of years. And then I had another little girl in November 2016. I had my Sunshine, Charlotte. And at the same time, a contract of mine that I was supposed to go back to work after 10 weeks of having her, and my contract kind of came to a natural end. So I ended up having a bit of maternity leave. And my partner at the time was trying to push me to go back to work. And very unlike me, I was like, no, I'm not going yet, I'm not going yet. And I had a really nice unplanned maternity leave with her. She was just a really chilled out baby. I was a mum of 2. I was really pleased to never have to be going through the pregnancy and newborn stage again, because I love my kids, but I don't relish that part. And then fast forward to the 18th of June 2017, Charlotte went to bed and never woke up, is the short story of a very long story. It was a big shock. She hadn't been particularly great the day before. It was a really hot night and she'd been fussing, so she was in bed with me when she died, which I will always feel a great deal of guilt about if things have been different. So I lost my child. I was in deep grief. I couldn't give up because I had Layla. and losing half your children doesn't mean you get to be half a parent. So I had to still continue to be her mum. I remember 48 hours after Charlotte died, it was Layla's first sports day at school, and going to watch her and all the other parents being, we can't believe you're here. Why aren't you just laid in bed crying? I'm like, because I've still got to be a mum. And then approximately about 6 to 8 weeks later, I discovered that I was pregnant again. Not planned, bit of a shock, like deep grief. I'm pregnant. Found out in Spain. It was a bit of a Bridget Jones moment, trying to get a pregnancy test in a pharmacy that didn't speak English, without letting my 5-year-old daughter cotton on to the fact that I might be pregnant. So there I am on maternity leave with no baby. I'm pregnant again with nearly 12 months out of the digital marketing world, and it's a really fast-moving world. I knew that I was skint because I'd taken nearly a year off work unplanned, getting the lovely maternity allowance of, about £60 a week.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, you can't really survive that long on that. So I needed to earn some money, and I knew that I needed to earn some money quickly before I was obviously pregnant, because we can all say that you can't not employ a pregnant woman, but I wouldn't employ a obviously pregnant freelancer to do a 9-month contract when they're clearly going to have to take some time off. So I just had to dig in, and my focus was to earn money. And after being kind of scared to launch my own business and just kind of work quietly in the background as a freelancer, I decided to launch a business. So deep grief, pregnant, I was literally coming off coals and puking in a bucket next to me. I had that morning sickness that was that bad. I don't really remember much about this time because I was in such a bad place mentally. I decided to do something to make Charlotte proud of mummy and do something positive in her name, rather than let her death be the thing that defined me and break me and just completely make me lose my love of life. So I launched Sunshine Digital because actually losing her made me a bit fearless, because having a business fail is absolutely nothing compared to the grief and sadness of losing your child.
No, and I think it's like you've said there, people can, it is something like that in your life can be the defining moment, and you can take it one way or the other. And I mean, your strength to sit here and talk to us about that is unbelievable. And I know that I've heard you talk before and share stories, and that's important to keep Charlotte's legacy alive. And I mean, I've done a lot of work with, I've been involved with 2 different charities that were legacy charities for young people that have lost their lives too soon, and that is very important to do that. And as you say, unfortunately, I mean, financial stress is also a huge problem that a lot of business owners face. So for you, you'd lost your child, you'd got no income apart from the massive maternity allowance that you were obviously getting, and you'd got all these other things you face. But then to throw financial stress on to top of that is just, it can be way too much. So you've got to find a solution. And I mean, I work with business owners around the work-life blend coaching, and the third element of the program that I deliver is around finances. And people say to me, well, what is that about your work-life blend? I said, well, if that's not right, it impacts you. It can take you down an even darker path, which some people do find themselves down, but you didn't. You rose to the challenge. Your sunshine shone. And but it didn't end there, did it, Claire?
No, I mean, a lot of people launch charities after they lose a child, but charity had to start at home for us.
Yeah.
And I was quite lucky that I saw that First Group PLC, so a massive company, were looking for someone to come on and help them with their content strategy for one of their subsidiaries. And I put a quote in and I got the job. And that was the first client I won as Sunshine Digital. So I was a little bit of luck and the universe helping me out there. Yeah. So my business went from strength to strength. I had Jack, my little rainbow hurricane in the middle of all that. Went back to work 48 hours later, like you do.
Yeah, I had, so my boys are now 31 and 25, and I had 3 weeks off with Tom because I had my own property lettings business then, and I had 4 weeks off with Charlie, my youngest, 2 at either side of giving birth, and the first 2 were because my midwife banned me from driving because she just knew I'd go to work in the office. So I get that. I get the going back to work.
Yeah, it was really quick. So had him, and life kind of carried on. I was still in quite a deep depression because I didn't enjoy being pregnant, and I love my babies, but the newborn phase I found particularly hard. I don't do well without sleep. So I did begrudge it a little bit, having to do it again. But anyway, here we are. And my business was doing really, really well. So fast forward nearly 2 years later. And I'd grown a really successful business. I'd won an award for being Business Mum of the Year through the Women in Business Club. And then COVID happened. And literally within 36 hours, I'd lost 90% of my clients because they were having to shut down the business. They don't need to market something that's not open. I found myself at home with 2 young children, one of whom was he 19, 20 months when it happened, who was an absolute, like, I couldn't turn my back. I used to have to I brought the car seat out of the car and I strapped him in his car seat in the living room in front of the TV because I literally couldn't go to the toilet without him, like, rewiring something or putting his fingers in a socket. He's a force to be reckoned with. And my partner was a key worker as well. So I was on my own with this failing business that I'm trying to save with 2 kids, one of whom was at school and I'm trying to educate. And it was just a really difficult time. But I dug in, and actually COVID worked really well for my business in the sense I did so much more. I'd never thought of myself as a coach, but during COVID, a lot of people took it as an opportunity because they stepped back with the business to learn how to do their own social media and create their content properly. So I created a product which still sells on a regular basis to this day, where I teach somebody what a good month of content looks like and how to create it.
Yeah, and you also produce that great calendar of awareness days that I love at the beginning of every... You share it at the end of every month as well, don't you?
Shameless plug. You can sign up to my newsletter for free and you get that into your inbox every month.
There you go. That's not a shameless plug. That's what... we're. I'm not a tosser. I'm not going to say, no, Claire, you can't plug your own business on here. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. And I mean, the thing that COVID... It had such a massive impact on the world. It wasn't just you. It wasn't just you. Although
sometimes it felt like it was.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the problems. I mean, I had 2 businesses at the time, and one was looking after B&Bs for people when they went on holiday. The B&B keeper, and that exactly the same. Just lost all the business. But actually, I was at a stage with that business where I needed to make a decision about it anyway. The decision was made for me. So Mrs. B, the B&B keeper, just, that I could end that business. Yeah. But all the business support that I do and all the opportunities and, I worked as mentor, peer-to-peer mentoring with a lot of business owners, one-to-one mentoring on funded programs. So for me, that was like a massive. But then actually at the end of COVID, that just stopped because everybody stops. Local authorities stopped spending their money, and we'd had Brexit as well. So there was all of that. So I think the one thing as well when you're running your own business, and I know this, and this for me is the importance of making sure that the people around you are the right people. And, again, element 4 of the Work-Life Blend programme, build your crowd wisely.
Yeah, definitely.
And you don't have to have a massive crowd around you, but what you have to have is a support network around you that cares. And I always say your crowd is made up of those that buy from you, those that promote you, and those that support you. And that's the importance, to stop that loneliness. And you obviously became a member of other people's crowds to help them with the content. Definitely. And I still am, really. Yeah.
I think when I work with somebody, because I don't work with tossers, when I work with somebody, it's someone who's my sort of person. and I will generally stay in touch with them, even if it's just via socials and things, because I tend not to work with people I don't like.
And all that you've been through. So you went through COVID.
Mm-hmm. Business is really good.
Yeah.
Roll on, 2022. I was having record month after record month after record month. I was doing really well. I wasn't having any time to myself. I was literally working 6-7 days a week into the evening, looking after the kids. It was crazy. And then round about the middle of May last year, I started with what I thought was a vomiting bug. And after 3 weeks, it hadn't gone away. I was ringing my GP, I was ringing 111, and I was sleeping for 22 hours a day. And I was literally getting in my car, doing the school run, and then having to sleep for until I went and picked the kids up again, picked them up. As soon as my husband got home, I'd go back to bed. There was something, everybody kept telling me I was okay, and I knew I wasn't. So I ended up, after 3 weeks of this, various other symptoms started. I ended up in A&E. And when they did my blood test, they did them 3 times, and they were like, your blood tests are basically, you shouldn't be conscious, maybe not alive. I was in heart, liver and kidney failure. They still don't know quite what happened, but I now have heart failure. They don't know whether I've had it my whole life or whether I had a really nasty virus. So basically the reason that I was getting sick was because oxygen and blood wasn't getting to my liver, so it wasn't able to process anything. So I was being ill because it wasn't able to remove any of the toxins from my body, so my body was getting rid of it by being ill. And then my other organs were gradually dying. So I spent nearly a month in hospital. Again, my business had to grind to a halt because I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't even lift my head to look at a laptop. I was on various treatments, etc., trying to get my heart working again. My heart was working at 8% of what it should be. I had infected blood clots throughout my body, 32 of them. So yeah, I was pretty poorly, and my business had to grind to a halt. But I now I've had my checkup this week, and I now live a relatively normal life. I will have to have a pacemaker at some point, and I'm on medication for the rest of my life. But there's nothing really that I can't do that I did before. They told me that I might not be able to walk up the stairs without oxygen. I now go wild swimming, I go to spin class, I do everything. I've even started running a little bit again. So, all the things they told me I couldn't do, I've done.
Well, we celebrated the first anniversary of you being told that you were never going to be able to walk upstairs without oxygen. Although I didn't know this at the time, but we did one of Anne Ackers's wellness walks in Saltaire, didn't we? And we climbed up a hill together.
We climbed up a hill to a trig point.
We did.
On a really hot day.
Where Claire announced that she was celebrating the anniversary of being told that she'd never be able to walk upstairs without oxygen. That was a momentous day and a beautiful day for me to share with you as well.
But what happened was my client base at the time, those that were understanding. And literally I had one client who I've had for years who rung me to tell me that he wasn't going to ring me, which was really, really sweet. I'm ringing you to tell you not to worry about anything. There's always a job for you here. And I'm ringing you not to tell you that I'm not going to ring you and just let me know when you're well. But it was actually a really good time for me to shed some tossers.
Yeah. Because
the people who were like, actually, when are you coming back to work? And can you just? No, I'm nearly dead. Actually, so no, I can't. So after that, I really cut back on who I worked with, and I've been much fussier since.
Yeah, and I think that's important. When I was in labour with my second son, I had some staff that ran the property lettings business, property lettings and management business I had. And I used to own it with my mum, and I'd bought her out, but she came back in to help. And this one guy rang, and I still remember this 25 plus years later, and he'd rung 3 times and he insisted on speaking to me. And in the end, my mum got on the phone and she said, if you want to talk to her, you better get up to Scarborough Hospital maternity ward because she's currently in labour, giving birth to a second child. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll leave it a few weeks then.
Yeah, exactly.
and now, I mean, then I had 350 properties that we managed as an agency, and I look back now and I think, my God, I'd probably have had half of that if I'd have shed some tossers.
Yeah.
But there are times in your life when you realise that you need to refocus on where you were, and I think there are some very defining times. I mean, you know, yours have been massively defining times, but that refocusing on ridding yourself of the tossers is so important.
Yeah.
Because you come to understand what is important and what... I mean, if life hadn't already told you that, like 3 episodes back.
Yeah, exactly. No, it definitely did then. But I think I'd got so, after COVID, nearly losing my business and things going so badly, overnight losing 90%, I think after COVID, when it was going well again, I didn't stop.
Yeah.
So I was just taking on, like now, people can book like a spotlight call with me for free, but actually quite often I will say to people, I'm sorry, I can't got capacity at the moment. I hope no one's listening who I've said that to, because it means I don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of work with an intuition coach. I think I've introduced you to Ruth Richards. And she said something the other day, if you get a niggle about someone and you ignore it, do you ever regret that? And I'm like, always. If I get a niggle about somebody that something's wrong and I ignore it, I always regret it, but I never regret not ignoring it. So now if I get a niggle about somebody, even if I can't explain it, I just don't want to work with them.
So Claire's message is, don't ignore the niggle.
Trust your gut.
Yeah, trust your gut.
And I think I'd stopped after losing my daughter, because my instinct was to take my fussy, poorly baby into bed with me, and she died. And then I knew I wasn't well a few years later, but I ignored it and kept listening to the medical professionals and thinking, I'm going to be okay, it's just a sickness bug, it's going to go away, and let myself get so poorly. I completely lost the trust in myself.
Yeah. And
I think learning to trust my gut again has really helped, because I don't end up stuck with tosser clients, or anyone really.
No, in work or in life.
In life, yeah. If I'm like, I don't like you, even if I can't explain it, then I'm nearly always right.
Claire, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Don't Work with Tossers, and good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
I love the work you do, and keep on keeping on, and life is definitely too short to work with tossers.
Yeah, absolutely. No tossers allowed.